Now a statement from Khin Mai Aung against the motion.
Well, one thing that John McWhorter is right about is that we are going to talk about diversity today, and it's not because I'm not advocating it because I believe that every black person has the same experience, and because I believe that black people should have to carry the mantle of the black experience for our educational benefit any more than I represent the same perspective as any other Asian person. I want to tell you a little story about my own experience. Very recently, I bought a house in the Ditmas Park area of Brooklyn, and it's been heralded as the most diverse census tract in the country. And so when I moved there, I found that the adults they were a little bit more hesitant to mix, but the young people at the pizza place hung out with people of all different backgrounds, and little kids at the playground were willing to play with each other from all different backgrounds. And this is something that I value. It's not something that I think is easy. It's not something that I think comes naturally, but it's something that will only happen when people go to school together, when people are exposed to each other, and preferably at an earlier age and also in higher education. And so you should vote with us if you agree with that statement, if you agree that a racially diverse environment is beneficial, if you believe that diversity enhances the educational experience and that diversity is good for business and the economy. You should also vote with us if you want a level playing field, not a false meritocracy that is actually full of hidden benefits for the children of donors and legacies. Now, some of you may be wondering why I, a lawyer at the Asian American Legal Defense and Education Fund, is here speaking out in support of affirmative action. Foes of affirmative action often like to say that Asians are the ones the most harmed by affirmative action. That's simply not true. First of all, many Asian groups, Southeast Asians in particular, who face numerous educational disadvantages, need and benefit from affirmative action in all contexts, in particular higher education. And all Asian Americans need and benefit from affirmative action in employment. So I want to echo what Tim Weiss said, is that we're talking not just about diversity, about affirmative action in education. We're talking about affirmative action in a variety of different contexts, including education, public contracting, and so forth. And we're also not just talking about a black and white paradigm. We're talking about how affirmative action benefits other people of color as well as women. So you should vote for us if you value a diverse and inclusive society and want a broad variety of experiences and viewpoints represented at our most prestigious educational institutions and workplaces. Business leaders have long realized the value of diversity. When the University of Michigan's affirmative action programs were challenged before the United States Supreme Court, 65 leading American businesses and their CEOs filed a brief in support of affirmative action. These included American Express, Chevron, Microsoft, Boeing, Nike, and the list goes on. They realized that the leaders of tomorrow need exposure to diverse people, ideas, and perspectives. These companies found that individuals educated in a diverse setting were more likely to succeed, and they had very concrete examples of these benefits. They realized that people who were educated in a diverse setting were more likely to facilitate creative problem-solving approaches. They can develop products that appeal to a diverse customer base, that they're better able to work with diverse business partners, clients, and employees, and they're more likely to contribute to a positive work environment. These companies need, and I quote, the talent and creativity of a workplace that is, or a workforce rather, that is as diverse as the world around them. Minority professionals are also more likely to provide needed services to underserved communities, and this has been found in studies about minority doctors. Incidentally, I think that this point was acknowledged by my colleague John McWhorter on the other side. In a study that was published in the New England Journal of Medicine in 1996, it found that Black and Latino communities were 4 times more likely to have a shortage of doctors. And incidentally, Black doctors tend to practice in communities with 5 times as many Blacks as communities where other doctors practice. They also have more Black patients and more Medicaid patients. Latino doctors, similarly, tend to practice in communities with twice as many Latinos as communities where other doctors are, and they also have more Latino patients and more uninsured patients. You should also vote with us if you believe in leveling the playing field. Women and minorities still face obstacles gaining admissions in our most selective universities and workplaces. And the College Board's own studies show that SATs are skewed in favor of whites and the wealthy. So, do I say that the SAT is meaningless? Probably not. But what is that meaning, and who is it skewed in favor of? And despite these advantages that whites still have with standardized tests, there are still twice as many whites as minorities with below average scores in the top universities, and this is because they're legacies or the kids of donors. Legacies are 3 times more likely than general population to be admitted at Harvard and 2.5 more times at Yale, and over half of legacies are admitted at Dartmouth and Penn. Now, turning to Asian Americans, foes of affirmative action, as I said, love to use us as the poster child for who would benefit if affirmative action ended, and this is just not true. First of all, Asians have voted decisively in favor of affirmative action in both California and Michigan when these policies were challenged. And now, it's true that some Asian American students have done remarkably well in higher education, and these are disproportionately the children of highly educated professionals who immigrated here predominantly from East Asia and South Asia, starting with the change in immigration laws in the 1960s. But there are other Asian American students that face considerable educational barriers, in particular Southeast Asians who are the children of refugees who fled here after the Vietnam War from Cambodia, Laos, and Vietnam. I do a lot of my work in Lowell, Massachusetts, which is the 2nd largest Cambodian enclave in the country. 1/3 of Lowell's school children are Asian, predominantly Cambodian. But 45%, a disproportionate number of Lowell's dropouts and students who are dismissed for severe truancy are Asian American. Almost 1 in 2 Hmong, and the Hmong are an ethnic group that hails from Laos, and over 1 in 4 Cambodians in the United States have had no formal schooling whatsoever. In the affirmative action plans endorsed by the United States Supreme Court in the University of Michigan cases, you can consider a broad array of diversity factors, of which coming from a family of Southeast Asian refugees can count. Proposition 209 ended affirmative action in California in 1996. Coincidentally, this was the same year that I graduated from Boalt Hall School of Law. And as an aside, it was the diversity at Boalt, Boalt was very diverse at the time, that in part inspired me to be a civil rights lawyer. And after affirmative action ended, diversity within the Asian American population has suffered at most selective University of California schools. At Boalt Hall School of Law, there were more than 4 times as many Filipinos with affirmative action than without. And overall, the number of Asian Americans has dropped by 1% at all UC law schools in the first 3 years without affirmative action. Whites, on the other hand, increased by 12%. At UC Berkeley undergrad, a study by the Southeast Asia Resource Action Center found less than 50 total Cambodian, that's far less than 1%, less than 50 total Cambodian and Lao at UC Berkeley in 1993. And the case for affirmative action in employment is even clearer for Asian Americans. There's less than 1% of partners at major law firms are Asian American, and less than 1% of senior managers at Fortune 1000 and Fortune 500 firms. That's very similar to the rates of representation for blacks and Latinos, but white men are 97% of senior partners or senior management at Fortune 1000 and Fortune 100 firms, even though they're only 43% of the workplace.
Thank you
very
much.
Thank you very much.